a hard-working father because the sluggard will experience poverty and want. They will be in need. You remember the psalm that says, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. I shall not be in need." Why? Because if we listen to the shepherd, he tells us to work hard. If we listen to the shepherd, he tells us to be industrious. And if we are industrious, if we are hardworking, then that will create prosperity and plenty. But so hard work is what brings the profit, and mere talk leads only to poverty. In fact, Paul writes in Romans chapter 12, "Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord." Even to the slaves who had masters that they reported to, Paul said, "Do what you do as unto the Lord, not unto men, knowing that of the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ." In other words, we are supposed to be working hard, even in our fervor for God, because we are actually in working to do what God calls us to do. We are serving the Lord. "For you yourselves know how you ought to follow our example," Paul says to the Thessalonians. "We were not idle when we were with you, nor did we eat anyone's food without paying for it. On the contrary, we worked night and day, laboring and toiling so that we would not be a burden to any of you." Paul was a tent maker, and it was tedious, hard, strenuous work, but he provided for himself and his co-workers so that they would not be a burden for the church in Thessalonica. "We did this not because we did not have the right to such help, but in order to offer ourselves as a model for you to imitate. For when we were with you, we gave you this rule: the one who is unwilling to work shall not eat." God despises laziness, because God gave us 2 hands and 2 legs and muscles that go with them so that we can do what God calls us to do. Because while the young have availability of strength, the old have the beauty of wisdom. Now, the gray hair is a metaphor for wisdom. It's a metaphor for a person who has attained wisdom, who has chosen to live by the wisdom that God has given. And so he says, "The glory of young men is their strength. Gray hair, the splendor of the old." And so the principle is that we are called to be a dedicated father through every stage of our lives. When we are young, we have one task that is given to us. When we are older, another task. And when we get much older, a different task. Because glory and splendor, 2 different Hebrew words. The first is glory. The strength of a young person is his glory. That means it is ornamental beauty. It's what makes him desirable. And when he uses that strength to be industrious, that makes him beautiful. And so it refers to one who is attractive, pleasant to look at, or pleasing in appearance. That's the word glory. And the glory of the young is their strength, their ability to do things that you lose the ability to do when you get older.